Oh my gosh, here I am. Yay! I am going to share my artwork with you today. I did a video yesterday emphasizing the fact that I might be high functioning autistic. That's a self based on 50 years on this planet with my unusual life. I just got back from art modeling. I got my Tom Petty button on, of course, because Tom Petty widens my jetty. And so, yeah, this is me. I'm a multimedia artist. For my creative expression, I call my work non-representational expressionism. That's the new title I came up for my work at this time for today. And I just thought I would put rhinestones on my face. I got these sheets of rhinestones for the World Naked Bike Ride and the Summer Solstice Parade in Seattle. I'm going to put these on my face for one of the parades. I also get these rhinestones stickies that I put on my face, and I do face paint and body paint. So I have a whole bunch of artwork that I would like to share with you. Yesterday, I did a video about my thought that I could be a high funk person, and I'm going to try to stay on topic and on focus. I was going to share my artwork with you, and so like that's going to be the focus because I have a tendency to go off on tangents, and I guess for me everything is connected anyway. I tend to connect the dots in a different way. So to me everything is connected to everything, but I guess that's kind of chaotic for most people, and including me, but that's the way my brain works. So here I am, and let's start with a classic Kringen. This is what I call primal Kringen. I painted my face. I think this is from 2006. This was my face paint for the World Naked Bike Ride, or was it the Body Pride? I ride in 3 different bike rides every year. There's the Body Pride ride in conjunction with Gay Pride in Seattle, and that's about having pride for everybody, no matter what you look like, whether you're overweight or thin or muscular or tall or short or whatever ethnicity. Everyone is beautiful, whether they have stretch marks or scars or they have a perfect body, whatever, doesn't matter. We're all beautiful in our own way. And although I do like to focus on health and fitness for my own health, but in terms of body pride ride, yes, I do that. And then I do the summer solstice ride and the World Naked Bike Ride. Those are the 3 rides. And so this is my face paint that I did for one of those rides, and I framed it. I printed it and framed it. So, and I also took the photo. So I am the model, the photographer, and the face painter for this photo, Primal Kringen. And I'm inspired by African tribes, Aboriginal art. And I know some people say that's cultural appropriation or some kind of negative thing like that. Now, I am inspired by nature and by sexuality and being naked, excuse me, and being wild and free. So that's my own instinctual way of doing it. And what was I going to say? Like, I don't look at books and copy other cultures. What I do is I just make things up. And then when I look at, I go, oh, I feel a kinship with that. And so this is a multimedia piece that I did for a class I was in. And this is a series. Maybe my autism, if I am high functioning autistic, maybe it does show up as uh, they say autistic people tend to have obsessive interests, like they're really, really into certain things. Like I'm really into Tom Petty music, Tori Amos music. I'm really into nutrition, including for my cat. I feed my cat raw meat diet. He's mildly diabetic, and I've been able to not have to give him insulin. And I am on a high fat, low carb, medium protein, not really ketogenic, but semi keto, my own version of healthy ketogenicness. And I intermittent fast every day. And this is self-portraits. I was going to say what I'm really, really into. One of my intense, let me change the camera a little bit. One of my intense interests is self-portraiture. I like to think of myself as, some people say it's narcissistic to do this many pictures of yourself. But to me, it's liberating and freeing and therapeutic because of my self-esteem tends to go up and down, and I model for other artists. And I think of myself as I'm a photographer, and then I model for myself. So these are like me modeling for myself. And I tend to be a little shy around other people in some ways. I have photographed other people, which was kind of fun. And I did some good headshots for other people. And I love to photograph animals. But generally, I'm more comfortable when I do things by myself. And so it's just something so comforting about taking photos of me and just trying to create something beautiful and not thinking of me, look at me, I'm so special. It's more like I am a blank canvas. I am like my own model, and I'm just expressing different sides of myself. So these are all just my face, and with a black wig on and face paint and no makeup at all and black and white and color, and with a Photoshop mustache, put a mustache on myself. I'm an only child, so if I had a twin brother, he would look like that. And it goes on here and more on the back. And then when you open it, I don't know if this will translate on camera very well. It's like there's one of my pieces of non-representational abstraction, non-representational expressionism. And on the inside, it was an assignment to take a book actually and alter it into our own magical, whatever we wanted it to be. So this is just a book that I got at a used bookstore. And I just cut it out with X-Acto knife and made it hollow, and then I added things inside of it. Excuse me, my voice is messed up today. I don't know why. When I was a kid, I believed my own imagination. It filled the world with colors and textures. And that is like, she wanted us, I think, to take a page out of the book, and then I crossed out some of the words and made my own new sentence. So that was the sentence I just read to you. So that's like my own like magical creation. Oh, and then here's there. I think this reminds me of Frida Kahlo for some reason. I love the art of Frida Kahlo and just makes me think of her for some reason. So I'm fascinated by the idea of metamorphosis and multifacetedness that people have in themselves. So when I take different photos of myself and make collages out of them, I think of different parts of my personality coming out in the photo. And okay, let me continue showing you different artwork. Hiding place. What is, I forgot. Okay, this is a similar assignment where I took a book and then I decoupaged it. Like I did color Xeroxes of face. This is a collage I made, obviously, of self-portraits once again, and then I decoupaged it. I made a color copy of it, and then I put it on this book and sealed it with clear plastic, what do you call it, gel medium. And hiding place. And there's some of my abstract art. There's like a photo that this is an abstract painting that I did, a non-representational pure abstract painting, and then a photo that I took of myself, and then in Photoshop, I made this transparent layer on top of my painting, and that's like a double layer. This is just an improvisational drawing that I did a few years ago. And this is just primal abstract painting. And then let's see, yeah. Oh yes, here's another one. That is a selfie that I did, inspired by Marlene Dietrich and old Hollywood. What do you call it? The really dramatic film noir lighting with lots of shadows. And then contrast. This is like more of a glamorous, beautiful thing. And then I made it really grainy. It's like a black and white Xerox of a photo in high contrast that I printed. And then this is just a cropped version of one of my pastel drawings that I made a color copy of. And again, I decoupaged it onto this book. And let's continue. I decorate my cell phone. My mobile phone has abstract drawing that I did, and then a collage of selfies. And there's companies where you can upload your own art and then they print them onto things for you. And let's see, let's continue. I call this piece Print Me. And it is I took a printmaking class and a silk screening class a few years ago in Seattle at a place called Pratt Fine Arts Center, great place. And I model there sometimes for art classes as well. And I took a class there and I made a print. I did printmaking, and this is like an oil, forgot what you call it, but you get the paper wet and you make prints. It's a complicated process, but this is a print that I made. I had this printed on a canvas, but this is like several steps to make this piece. I started off by taking a printmaking class, and then this is oil ink and wet piece of paper, and I made this this design on a piece of linoleum, and I cut it, and then there was sand involved and gesso and polymer and different things. It's hard to explain the process, but this is like a print that I made with oil ink, like ink-based oil, printed onto paper. And then in Photoshop, I took a photo of this print, put it in Photoshop with a black and white self-portrait that I did, and then I did a transparent layer. And so I superimposed my pure non-representational abstract expressionist design, which is this, superimposed it in Photoshop with 50, I think about 50% transparency with a photo. So this is like a painting and a photo combined. So I did this whole thing by myself, and then I put this on a computer, and so it's digital art. So it's photography and printmaking, and then Photoshop and digital art combined. And then I had it printed at a place onto canvas. So this is like, you know, canvas, like canvas. And so it's printed onto canvas. And I've shown this a few places in Seattle, and I call it Print Me because it's a print of me, and it's printmaking with a print of me printed with it. So I like the idea that I am inside my own painting. I'm inside my own autistic world. I don't know if I'm autistic, but I think I am. But I'm artistically autistic if I am autistic at all. What I mean by that is I'm highly sensitive, and I get overwhelmed, and I have a rich inner world, and I have this desire to communicate and connect with people. And I feel like I don't always know how to fully connect with people in the way that would satisfy me. So I make art, and yeah. So here's the Print Me by Shannon Kringen. And here is shoes that I painted. I've been known for painting shoes for many years. In high school, I started painting like high heels and tennis shoes. I painted a pair for Tori Amos, the musician, who I love very much. And this is just one example of some shoes that I painted. I've also painted like Converse high tops, and I can paint any kind of style of shoes as long as it's like canvas or leather, real leather, fake leather, canvas. I use a series of like acrylic paint, fabric paint, waterproof markers. Sharpies are great to paint with. Yeah, they're waterproof. Let's see what else. Here is another self-portrait. And after I did a 10-day Vipassana silent meditation retreat, and I was just feeling really well rested, and somebody gave me a sticky headband, so I put that, and that's a painting I did in the background, kind of a Catch the Windsong Spiral Drive style painting. Catch the Windsong Spiral Drive is, oh, my hair is sticking to my face, is a phrase that popped into my head one day. I also print my pastel drawings. This is a pastel drawing design that I did, and I had it printed onto this bag. And this is, I call it, it's a Kringen drum. And this is acrylic paint, very quickly, spontaneously done onto a silk screen. I accidentally discovered that if I put masking tape on the back of a silk screen, it sounds like a drum. So there it is. It's a Kringen drum. And one of my favorite artists is called Hundertwasser. That's how you spell his name, Hundertwasser. I think that means 100 waters. He is Austrian. So I guess that means he spoke German. So he was Austrian. He did a lot of, he's inspired by Gustav Klimt and Gaudi, and the Spanish architect Gaudi and Gustav Klimt, the painter. But Hundertwasser really had his own style. But, you know, if you had to compare him and talk about who he was influenced by, I would say Gustav Klimt and Gaudi. And I'm influenced by Hundertwasser. I love nature and the shapes that I see in plants and animals, and a lot of his art incorporated different things like that. So his work is beautiful. A lot of Americans don't know about Hundertwasser. My friend from Norway said they taught her about Hundertwasser in high school. So that's good to know. But in the United States, I don't think that they teach, because Hundertwasser was an outsider artist. He taught himself. He went to art school, I think, for like 2 days, and then he dropped out because they're like, you have to do this. And he's like, no, I want to do what I want to do. So he just left and did his own thing and became successful on his own without a college degree, which is fine with me. So there it is. So he's a self-taught artist, intuitive. I published my own book, Art, Identity, and the Sacred. And it's just a multimedia book that's filled with photography and abstract painting and a variety of things. If you go to my website, you can find it. This is a printmaking collage that I made. This one's pretty chaotic. I don't think this is like my most successful thing, but I kind of like the shape though. It's kind of a phallic shape, to be honest, but it's very like, it makes me think of the ocean and sea anemones and different shapes like that. Let me get this going here. There's a series now that I can show you of, here, okay, hope you can hear me okay, everybody. This is self-portrait photos superimposed on top of a pure abstract painting of mine, and I had it printed onto board. I like the idea of combining painting with photography. And my background is in graphic design and color and composition. And I've taken a lot of design classes in printmaking and silk screening, and I went to a 2-year graphic design program. So that's kind of my official training. But my mom is also a visual artist, so she kind of taught me some things. And I seem to have a natural intuitive ability with color from a young age. So I don't think anybody really taught me that. But because when I took color theory, I got it right away. Like I did a color wheel. I remember I painted a color wheel in front of my class, and the instructor was like, you get it. Like I did tone and tint. I understood value. Basically, I understood value in color and right away. And I did this like big chart, this color chart that our instructor wanted us to do. And I remember the instructor was like, Shannon gets it. She totally gets it. Look, everybody, this is what I wanted you to do. Because other people weren't doing it quite right. And I did it completely right because I totally understood what the teacher wanted. And I'm just saying that I think that my talent I was born with, but I also think that I learned from the classes that I took. But I'm a self-taught photographer. I've never taken a photography class, nor do I want to take a photography class. But the technical aspects of photography are not what I'm interested in. Kind of like some musicians who don't know how to read music. If you know how to play your own music and you have a band, you don't, you know, some of the Rolling Stones don't even read music. So it's like, it doesn't matter if you read music or you don't read music. If you can play music, you can play music, whether you read music or not. You know, if you're trained, great. If you're not trained, that's fine. If you're an outsider artist or not. And so I'm a little bit of both. Like I was trained in design, but I mostly do my own intuitive improvisational thing that nobody could really teach me. So there is painting and photography combined. I volunteer at the zoo here in Seattle. And this is a photo I took of the jaguar. And then again in Photoshop, I superimposed it with 50% transparency of a selfie that I did of myself. So I'm the model and the photographer and the artist for this photo. It's called Jag Me. I love animals, and animals make me happy. Animals are therapeutic to me. I think there's a thing called speciesism where humans think that they're superior to other species. And I like the idea that we are just different. And if anything, because we dominate the planet and we destroy the habitat, I think it's really good for humans to take care of the animals as much as possible. And we also eat animals. So all the more reason why we can do that in the best way that we can and try to be ethical about it. And so this Jag Me, I like the idea of animal spirits and the symbolism of animals, as well as literally I care about the animals and I love the animals, and I like I like the way animals smell. I mean, maybe that's part of my synesthesia or part of my, because when I hear music, I see shapes and colors dance in my head. But I also am very sensitive to smell and taste and touch. And when I go to the zoo, when I volunteer, I like to smell the animals. I know that sounds kind of weird, maybe, I don't know, but people that are raised on farms probably understand. You know, the way horses smell so sweet, and you smell the hay and there's the manure. Not that I really like the smell of manure, but I kind of like that sort of earthy farm smell. And then there's one animal at the zoo that smells like a skunk. And most people are like, ooh, yuck, you know, but I actually like that smell. It's the red-maned wolf. It looks like a fox, but it's a wolf, and it has these really big ears, and it just smells so good. It smells kind of skunky, and so I enjoy the smell of plants and animals and when I'm out in nature, and basically I just really enjoy the natural world. It kind of calms me down and makes me feel more balanced. So Jag Me. And oh God, my thing is there. That's itching me. My rhinestone is itching me. So here it is. This is, I forgot what it's called, but this is like a collage that I made, obviously mirror image. I think it's called phallic heart. The actual art is kind of more like that, like this square is the phallic heart design. And then I like turned it into like a mandala or a mosaic or whatever you want to call it. And I just love green. And I had this printed onto board in this green repetitive pattern because I love green. Green is a healing color. I think in the chakra, it's the heart chakra in the chakra thingy McJagger. And so green is very healing. And I'm inspired by the shapes I see in nature. That these shapes and textures remind me of like sea urchins and sea anemones and different creatures in the ocean, basically. I grew up in San Diego, California by the ocean, and some of my earliest childhood memories are of the ocean. And this I actually did in high school. My mom actually kept this. This is like a drawing that I did that took a long time in high school with markers. And I remember I spent a lot of time on this. And I got really into it. And the shapes in this remind me of the brain. This looks like brain pattern, like brain matter to me, like the different like repetitive shapes and how it all mushes together. And it just reminds me of a brain. And I just sort of chose different colors just randomly. And I feel like there's a lot of chaos in my head. And I feel like this is kind of, well, this is what my brain looks like on the inside, I think, a little bit. And it's kind of like a little chaotic and a little repetitive, but at the same time, I kind of like it. So there's times when I wish that my brain could be more organized, more linear, but instead it's very nonlinear and intuitive and improvisational. And so I think this is my brain, but I'm not sure. I don't know. It's like or maybe it's a labyrinth, or maybe it's some kind of a journey that people can take. Thank you. Somebody gave me the thumbs up. Thank you for the thumbs up. If anybody's saying anything, I don't see any words anywhere, so I can't respond because I don't really know how to use this properly. So if you're saying something, thank you. Hello, thank you for joining me. I can't see anything on the screen that anybody's typing, so I'm sorry I can't respond to that, but I'll respond later if I can. This is a charcoal drawing. I think it's, sometimes I do oil. Okay, no, this is a pastel, sorry. This is a chalk pastel drawing. I've done some oil pastel drawings. This is chalk. And these are just shapes that I drew, and I don't know what it means exactly, but sometimes when I look at my work that's like this, non-representational expressionism, I think of being in an airplane and look, because I love to fly, I love to travel, and I've been to Europe several times visiting friends, and I'm really lucky and grateful that I was able to do that because I'm low income, but I can somehow travel. It's kind of a miracle, and I know how to travel on a really tight budget. And what was I going to say? This is, it makes me think of looking down on the ground from an airplane, and you see like the rivers and the lakes and the glaciers and the mountains and the topography of the land, and it just kind of makes me think of that. And then I just see these just energy. It's like, I guess this is just me expressing in the, like, because when I draw things like this, I don't see anything in my head. It's funny, I listen to music and I see shapes and colors like synesthesia. Tori Amos says sometimes she looks at paintings and she hears music, and she can write music doing that. Looking at visual art, she can hear the paintings. Whereas for me, when I look at, I don't hear music when I see this art. But when I listen to music, I see shapes in my head. I suppose the shapes I see are kind of like this. But when I drew this, I had no picture in my head. I just had this feeling in my fingers, like it's kinesthetic. When I draw, I just drew like a shape. And then I was inspired to use a certain color next to this color and next to this color, next to this color. And so I just sort of build it. Actually, that's how Hundertwasser. See, my favorite painter, Hundertwasser, I think he worked in a very similar way. He talked about being in kind of a trance when he made art, and he felt like that was his spiritual thing that he did. Well, I feel very similar to that. It's like I just start drawing a shape, and I pick a color, and then I feel like I know what the next color should be. And so I make it up as I go. It's totally improvisational, and I have no picture in my head when I'm doing this. Like some artists, I think my mom even, she has a picture in her head and then she makes drawings and designs, but I don't seem to work that way. I have no picture. I'm almost like my head is blank visually, and I look at what I see and I respond. It's similar to when I take photos. Like I have no preconceived idea about what I want to photograph. I just go for a walk, and then I go, oh, look at the light. Oh, look at that. And then I just see colors and shapes and textures, and I respond in the present moment. I like to take photographs of the world around me, but I have no desire to draw realistically. I have no desire to look at nature and then draw what I see. You know, when I do these drawings, I don't look at anything. I just feel something in my hand and my body, and then I respond to what I see as I'm drawing it. But when I take photos, well, same thing. I respond to what I see. See, I'm very spontaneous and improvisational, whether I take photos or draw pure abstract expressionism, just explaining my process. And then this is phallic heart. This is phallic heart. This is one of my favorite prints that I ever made. And what's fascinating about printmaking is you can do the exact same thing. You can mix up the same ink and then do several prints in a row, and every single one looks different. You think that you're duplicating what you're doing, but it's magic. It's like every single print looks different, even if you use the same formula. So this was one of I did several prints, maybe 10 or 12 prints of this particular design. The original is about half the size of this, and this was printed onto stiff board. I like the idea of making prints, and so this is phallic heart. The shapes, it's just shapes that I drew on with sand and acrylic polymer onto a linoleum tile, I think. And there's a certain technique, and I forgot what it's called, but I took a class in printmaking and I had a lot of fun. And I just drew this design and let it dry, and then you make plate. You make a plate basically. This design I drew by hand, and then it was a plate, and then you take that plate and you roll ink on it, and then you put a sheet of paper on top, and then you roll over it. And so it's really cool. Like, it's really fun. I kind of miss doing it. But phallic heart, there it is. This is called Kringamorphosis because it's like metamorphosis. I love butterflies. I'm fascinated by the idea of metamorphosis. So I call it Kringamorphosis because my last name is Kringen. Why I call myself Goddess Kring is like a nickname I gave myself many years ago, like 1996 or something, just for fun. And Kring, I guess, means circle. And my last name is Kringen, which is Norwegian. But Kring means spiral or circle, I think, and Kringen is multiple spirals and circles. And this is I painted my face, and then I took a self-portrait, and then I think this was 2007 I did this, and I took a self-portrait, and then in Photoshop I liquefied it. There's a tool called Liquify in Photoshop, and I kind of smeared my skin, and I had face paint on, so that's why all these colors are on my skin. So the face paint, and then I blended it with the tree and the bush that was behind me and my hair. And then I had a flower in my mouth. I just spontaneously got the idea to put a flower, a dandelion, in my mouth, maybe as a way of celebrating, I love nature, plants, animals, the earth, nature. Kringamorphosis, kind of like maybe a spiritual message too, like I am one with the plants behind me, I am one with the flower that's in my mouth. Kringamorphosis, like butterflies and how they dissolve and how they shed. A caterpillar turns into a butterfly. I mean, the whole thing is magical and amazing. Like, nature is amazing. The metamorphoses we see in nature, even just how DNA, like how people have babies together, and the sperm and the egg and the DNA. I mean, it's amazing what nature does. And so maybe this means all of that. And this is mapping internal lands. I think I call this mapping internal lands. And this is, I think, an oil pastel that I did, or maybe this is chalk. I really don't know if this is chalk or oil pastel, but I had it printed because the original is kind of fragile on a small piece of paper that's really flimsy, and I had it printed onto this stiff board. And I just love the shapes. This makes me think of a rabbit. It makes me think of this symbol. I do this kind of like everything's okay. This makes me feel better, like everything's okay. Somebody said that's a mudra, like a thing you do with your hands. Well, that reminds me of this shape. And again, this makes me think I'm in an airplane looking down at the ground, and these are like the shapes of the land masses. I like to use a lot of complementary colors, red and green, blue and orange, yellow and purple, or cross, what do you call it? Not, instead of complementary colors, cross split complements. I think I do split. I don't know. I naturally intuitively do what I do with color. But I know that I'm inspired by complementary colors. I like extreme contrast, but I use values that are dark and light, and so they don't vibrate. And so I love the dark and the light, and this just makes me think of energy and life and biology. This, I think, is Windsong Spiral Drive. I wrote a poem called Windsong Spiral Drive, and Claxton Kent from Portland, he's a musician, he and I recorded it, called Windsong Spiral Drive, and you can look it up online. There's a free on Bandcamp. You can listen for free. Go to Bandcamp, Goddess Kring, and look for Windsong Spiral Drive, and you can hear the audio version of this. Windsong Spiral Drive is just a phrase that popped into my head, and I feel like Windsong Spiral Drive is kind of like straining the stream of consciousness, like Windsong Spiral Drive. Like, I feel like there's energy and things work in a like the earth is spinning, and how sacred spirals are and patterns in nature, and everything is a circle and a spiral. And this just makes me think of the way plants grow and just a celebration of nature, This makes me think of sperm and egg. This makes me think of, I don't know, plants. And I guess this makes me think of plants. And it makes me think of nature and the ecosystem and how one thing dies and fertilizes the earth, and then new plants grow and fungus grows. I remember when Mount St. Helens erupted here in the United States, the scientists thought, I took a class, a forest class, and the instructor said that scientists thought that it would take a really long time, like a year or two, for the ecosystem to start coming back. And within 6 months after Mount St. Helens, the ecosystem started coming back. Fungus, actually, the white makes me think of fungus. Mycelium, or what is it called? Those long streaks of fungus. Basically, the first thing that came back after Mount St. Helens, the volcano eruption, it destroyed everything. The plants and animals were all gone. It was just mud and ash. And the scientists within 6 months saw that there was fungus. And then because there was fungus, and then mushrooms grew, fungus and mushrooms attracted like birds or little insects. And then the insects, you know, fertilized the ground with their poop. And then something was eating the fungus, which fertilized the earth. So the insects and the birds and the fungus started growing within 6 months. And then the whole ecosystem was started again. But what's cool is that the ecosystem at Mount St. Helens is now different than it was before the mountain blew. So it's like the earth regenerated itself and it created a different new kind of ecosystem based on the fungus and the birds and the little insects. And then certain mammals were attracted to whatever those birds and fungus and insects were. And so the ecosystem is now different at Mount St. Helens than it was before. I mean, that's fascinating to me. And it's good to know that the earth regenerated sooner than they even thought that it could. So that's what this painting makes me think of, actually. And now we're back to this. So I guess we did the whole thing. So yeah, that's the pure abstract painting mixed, or are we done? Yeah, I think we're done with that. Yeah. So now I can go to the next stack. So my face itches right now. Forgive me while I rest for a second. And I need to just check part of being an art model is checking your email many times a day to see if you get any last minute sudden jobs. I would say about 20% of my modeling gigs are sudden, like the model doesn't show up or somebody cancels and I'm like, I can do it. Okay. Here is another painting of mine. I forgot what I call this one. I think I do have a name for it, but nope, I forgot. Doesn't have it on the back. So I've shown this a few times in Seattle at different places, and I don't remember the name of it, but I like the shapes in this. It just makes me think of how everything is separate and yet everything is connected. I guess that's what this pops into my head. Similar to Windsong Spiral Drive, because I feel like these are circular shapes that could probably start spinning, and then one thing leads to another and things grow, kind of like machinery. Actually, this makes me think of spinning wheels and machinery, a car engine. I don't know. I could go off on tons of tangents just looking at this, the shapes and the colors that I used for this. I also really love Native American, Northwest Coast Indian art. I love the symbolism and the kind of thick, I don't know, the shapes. I guess this makes me think of a lot of different things, but it makes me think of different shapes and in nature. Everything I do seems to be inspired by plants and animals and the ecosystem in nature, maybe more so than I'm inspired by humans. Like, you know, I'm a human. I love humans. But I feel like I'm really not people-oriented as much. I love music. I love animals and plants. I'm more attracted to than I am to humans. Even though I have a boyfriend and I have friends and I have a mom and a dad, all of that. But I'm really into being alone a lot of the time. And when I make art, it just seems like I'm inspired by plants and animals. And what else? I forgot to show this one. I honestly forgot the name of this one. I painted this, gosh, 20 years ago. This is 1999. I did this, and this is an acrylic on canvas. And I put like a couple, there's a rhinestone here and a rhinestone here. And this makes me think of birth and death. This makes me think of, I see male and female shapes of the anatomy in this, and I see a womb, and I see seeds, and I see, somehow I see death. I see birth and death. I see the circle of life and death, and I see the regeneration of life and death and birth and death and life, and just the circular pattern of life and death, and how something that's an end is really a beginning, and something that's a beginning is really an ending, and doors open and doors close, and life is just like infinity. That's what I think of when I look at this painting I did. So I shared this yesterday as well. This is one of my chalk pastels that I showed you a few minutes ago, and it's printed onto a mouse pad. So I kind of like the idea of taking my designs and printing them onto other things. Part of the thing about me thinking that I'm autistic, high functioning autistic, is that obviously, I mean, I have a BA degree, and I took graphic design. I went to 6 years of college. I went, oh no, 7 years. I went to 3 years at community college, did a 2-year graphic design degree, and I also did 1 year of general studies and experimented and explored. I loved anthropology. I loved English. I like creative writing. I write a lot of poetry. I do a lot of things, and I make a full-time living as an art model because that's an easier way for me to make a living than to try to figure out how to turn my art into a living. I thought about getting a master's degree in art therapy, but I'm not sure if I don't think I'm people-oriented enough to be a great therapist. I know I'm smart enough, and I have enough depth intellectually and psychologically, but I don't think I'm really tuned into people in a confident way that would help me be a good therapist. So I don't think that art therapy is for me, but also, I thought about getting my MFA. Actually, something weird happened to me when I applied to a school to get my MFA, which I don't think I want to get into, but somebody spread a rumor about me, which kind of screwed up my chances of getting into the school for an MFA. But now I'm kind of glad that that happened. That's a long story, but because in the United States, if you get a Master of Fine Arts degree, you're looking at $120,000, in student loans or whatever, unless you get a scholarship. So financially, it's probably a good idea that I did not get a master's degree. But basically, I'm thinking that, in some ways I'm so gifted and intelligent, and yet I'm not that successful in terms of how successful you think that I could be. Although my lifestyle is such that I'm considered low income, and yet I'm doing really well, and I'm kind of like middle class because I know how to live so cheap, like go to thrift stores, and I'm just a really good shopper, and I cook food at home. I'm picky about what I eat, so I cook at home. But to make a long story short, my main point is that I have all this potential, and I guess I should just pat myself on the back and say that I'm probably doing really, really well because I do have a lot of anxiety and my brain is chaos. And, I can organize my art modeling schedule. I have a calendar that I write everything down, and my schedule is very complicated. And yet I'm able to pay all my bills and keep up with all of that and do my artwork and model, and I do a radio show, and I do these videos, and I take care of my cat, and I do all these things, and yet I feel like everything is just chaos for me, and that I'm just take one day at a time. And, there's people who think that I should try to get my work in serious art galleries, or that I should try to do something more professional. On my photography, I have it on Flickr, as I have like over 6,000 photos I've taken, and I offer them free to publish under Creative Commons license. And a lot of people say that I should copyright my images, and that I shouldn't let anybody publish them for free, and I should always get paid, and blah, blah, blah. And that kind of takes as if I'm being taken advantage of because I let my photos get published for free. But the thing is, there's a lot of free images online, and it's a compliment to me. The fact that people publish my photos and choose to publish my photos is kind of amazing. So That's a compliment. And I like to offer my work for free online. See, I like the freedom of doing my art in my own improvisational way, whether it's painting or photography or poetry or music. And then I get paid by the hour to be a model. So my normal job is, paid by the hour, is to model for artists and medical students full time. I guess I'll continue this video because it's 45 minutes. Thank you for anybody who's watching. Feel free to ask me questions or comments. Constructive criticism is fine as long as you're not mean. Respectful, is fine. I know I'm strange and eccentric, but thank you for listening and watching, and I hope you're inspired by me to do whatever you love. Do more of that. Don't listen to people who make fun of you. Or tell you can't do something, and including your own self. If you have your own little negative voice in your head that tells you you can't do something, just don't take it seriously. Just be like, okay, thanks for sharing, and then just do what you love. So no matter what, do what you love. Be yourself no matter what they say, which is a line from a Sting song called Englishman in New York that I love. Be yourself no matter what they say. So thanks for listening. My name is Shannon Kringen, Goddess Kring. I live in Seattle, USA, and my website, shannonkringen.com. Just Google Shannon Kringen or Goddess Kring, and you'll find all the stuff that I share online. I'm just learning and growing as I go. Life is improvisational for me. And I love to listen to Eckhart Tolle videos to calm myself down. I listen to Tom Petty, Tori Amos music. I hang out with my cat. I go for walks in nature. All that stuff helps me. And eating, I'm eating in a certain way. I'll talk on some other video about mental health and nutrition. I think that nutrition is so important for mental health as well as physical health. And I think not enough people talk about the power of nutrition to help you mentally and emotionally as well as physically. Okay, have a good day or night, everyone. Bye for now. Thanks for tuning in.